Welcome to Capitol Review with State Representative Paul Gardner. I'm Mike Howard. Representative, thanks for coming into the studio today to talk with folks back in your district about the state budget and how it's going to affect them.
Yeah, we're actually moving very quickly. I think we decided way back in December as Democrats in the House that we wanted to take this bull by the horns on our $1.2 billion deficit that goes through June 30th of next year, 2011, and deal with it right away. And then also think about how we're going to deal with the deficit in 2012 and 13, which is extremely large. So what we are doing right now in our finance committees and through the Ways and Means Committee and next week on the House floor will be a series of cut bills. We have, I want to say, 12 or 13 divisions or fiscal committees. So there's agriculture and natural resources and education and higher education and so on. So every one of those committees has put together a cut bill. Now we had some good news. The deficit went from being projected to be $1.2 billion to $1 billion. Still a lot of money. So we're planning to cut roughly, I want to say it's a $300 million.
That sounds about right.
From all the budgets other than education and human services. Then we'll have a human services cut bill, and then we're waiting to see what happens with federal health care reform. Not a lot of people realize this, but federal health care reform actually could mean a margin of safety for our K-12 system. And the reason for that is federal health care reform would result in a lot of people who are covered by public health care programs now, like general assistance, medical care, and Minnesota Care. That would be covered by Medicaid, and the federal government's share of that would increase. That would actually let us get rid of the healthcare provider tax and do a couple of other things. But it also would free up the general fund dollars that we spend on Medicaid. And we pay half of Medicaid so that we might concentrate on K through 12, which is our largest budget item.
It can be confusing, but the bottom line there is there needs to be a window to wait and see what's happening with federal legislation. It is moving fairly
That's correct.
quickly at this point now.
Yeah, we would expect in a matter of days. It's almost St. Patrick's Day here for Congress to act and perhaps for the president to sign something before the end of session. So we're holding off on some of our final budget bills until we know that picture.
Let's talk about that first round of cuts you mentioned and some of the priorities within each of these budget areas that you're looking at. I know that definitely trying to preserve jobs and mitigate harm to the economy is a big priority.
I can speak to the tax committee's part of it. Under the tax committee's jurisdiction, and I'm on the tax committee, we look at things like local government aid, the market value homestead credit, the property tax refund program, county program aid, which most people don't really know about. Those aids and credits are meant to equalize the tax burden so that we don't have huge pockets of poverty or make it harder for people to live in their homes, particularly those who are retired. And it also supports things like public safety, police and fire, and particularly in small towns, but also in some suburbs. Lexington in our district gets a lot of local government aid. So we have to cut $105 million out of that. The governor was proposing $250 million. So our proposal is less onerous. But we're trying to figure out how to make it so that those aids and credits go to the people who really, really need them.
Right.
And if it's of marginal value to some cities or some counties or some individuals, that we have some limits. And that's difficult. It's not going to be very popular, but as are many of the other cuts. But I think the electorate has been very understanding that we're in very difficult economic times and that we want to maintain the focus on our critical functions like public safety, K through 12 education, and caring for our seniors and the disabled. It's going to be hard to do that. And then next year, we're going to have an even larger projected deficit. And so we're trying to make sure that the cuts that we make this year are permanent, or rather than one-time cuts, so that we carry the savings over to the next fiscal year. And that will make the job of the next legislature, whoever may be sitting in this chair, a little bit easier. And we don't want to kick the can down the road on that.
Well, with all these moving parts, I know you invite folks to contact you with their questions,
Yes.
with their input, and also to visit your legislative blog, which updates folks on the happenings at the
Right.
Capitol.
I always like to draw my finger. It's right here. Yes, if they Google my name and the word blog, you'll find out some of the activities I'm working on. You can always get on my email list if you go to my website at the Minnesota House, and I always like hearing from constituents by phone, email, or mail, or personal visits.
This has been Capitol Review with State Representative Paul Gardner.
Thanks, everybody.